Hi, and welcome to the 2024 season of Power to the Pricing People. We're kicking off this year with a very special guest, Mark Stiving from Impact Pricing. Mark is going to give us the inside scoop on whether prices are really falling in the US, the end of the post-pandemic spending boom, and how businesses can maintain margins when commodity prices like sugar are jumping all over the place. I'm Kath Brands from Flintfox, and today I'm joined by a very special guest, Mark Stiving, who is the founder of Impact Pricing, a pricing consultancy and training company that specialises in educating companies about value-based pricing. Welcome, Mark, to Power to the Pricing People. We're delighted to have you join us, especially because you, my friend, are an even bigger pricing geek than me.
Oh gosh, I love pricing, and I am so excited to talk about whatever the heck we're going to talk about today.
We're coming out of post-holiday season, and there's a lot of news about pricing at the moment. And one of the top stories that comes to mind in the news is that prices have actually fallen for the first time in 3 years in the US, apparently. You know, with inflation predictions are going to subside for this year, how should businesses respond to this potential subsiding in inflation? Is it reducing prices to encourage consumer confidence, or is it encouraging customers to spend more, the right strategy?
So first, I'm not sure that I agree with the premise that prices are falling. Right? I think there are some prices that are falling. So obviously house prices are going down right now. I think what most people are hearing is that inflation is down, and that means prices aren't going up as fast. It doesn't mean prices are going down. So when you go to the grocery store, I can tell you that the price of beef is not going down, right? It is still going up. It just might be going up a little slower. And if you think about history for a second, go back 100 years, 200 years, prices were so much smaller than they are today. And the reason for that is as inflation happens, prices move up, but they never move back down. It takes a deflationary period to get prices to come back down. So in general, I don't think prices are truly coming down. But that said, what do I think companies should be doing right now? I think companies should be doing what they should always be doing, and that's watching what's going on in their marketplace. If their competitors are dropping their prices, then they need to think about, should I be dropping my price as well in order to not lose market share? The one thing that I emphasize to all of my clients, never ever lead a price decrease. You should not be the first one to lower your price. So if you think you're losing demand because people stopped buying your type of product, that's not a reason to lower your price. The only reason I would ever give to lower a price is that my competitors lowered their price, and I need to respond to that.
I saw this really funny thing on Instagram around New Year's, which was, I don't want to party like it's 1999. I want to shop like it's 1999. That's exactly what it is, right? Now, Mark, CNBC recently reported that businesses ranging from FedEx through to the airlines have encountered the threshold at which they can raise their prices while still sustaining their sales volume. We're sort of moving into this post-pandemic spending boom slowdown. And, I, even as a consumer myself, I've really pulled back because of inflation, everything you were talking about before. And this year is not really forecast to be an absolute boomer, I guess, for industry. How can companies really work to sustain their revenue without solely relying on price hikes? What role does cost cutting play in all of this?
This is a really hard question because companies hate losing revenue, right? They hate having a down year. And the question becomes, how do I keep my year the same as it was? But imagine for a second that we come out of the pandemic and people are now actually going to stores to shop, although they're not doing it that much. They're doing it more than they used to. So Amazon isn't shipping as many boxes. FedEx isn't shipping as many boxes. By the way, Amazon's built their own trucks, at least here in the US now. So they're out delivering their own boxes and they're not hiring FedEx or the US Postal Service. So if you just think about FedEx for a second, there's just less demand for their service. So what do? Now they could say, hey, we need to lower price to bring demand up. But if we go back to that conversation we just had a second ago, if FedEx says, hey, I'm going to lower my price because I'm not winning enough business, guess what everybody else is going to do? Everybody else is going to lower price. And all we've done then is hurt industry profits. I would recommend if FedEx is trying to figure out what do we do to keep revenue up, it's find a new product, find a new service. You don't have to give up what you're doing, but find something adjacent where we can gain more revenue and try to maintain where we are. Buggy whip manufacturers don't make as much as they used to. Just got to say that.
Yeah, it's true. And one of the other big thing that is having a massive impact on margins right now is, we're seeing commodity prices continue to sort of jump around wildly, right? Oil prices is up and down, coffee's gone up, and now sugar has been massively impacted by climate change. We reported last year at Halloween that the cost of candy was up by 20% year on year, which is massive. So do you think that food manufacturers, and I guess manufacturers in general, are nimble enough to be able to cope with these ongoing input cost changes and just the volatility in the market?
I think there are certain industries that are designed to handle this. And by the way, it's because they do pricing wrong that they can handle this.
Yeah.
Right. So if you do a cost plus pricing methodology, then when the costs go up, guess what we do with our prices? We move them up.
Yeah,
if we were doing value-based pricing, that would be much harder because now every time our costs change, what we really need to be doing is looking and saying, well, are our competitors changing their prices? So then maybe we have room to change ours, or maybe we want to try to lead the price increase to see if we can get our competitors to follow. But I think that there are a lot of industries like food, anybody who is dependent upon fossil fuels, anybody who's dependent upon gold or silver, they tend to have in their pricing mechanisms a way to scale based on the cost of these commodities or these base products where there's a lot of fluctuation in the price.
And I guess ultimately what happens so often within, the food manufacturing space, or just in manufacturing as well, there's so many fingers in the pie, right? There's so many handoffs between a manufacturer selling to a wholesaler selling to a retailer, and then the retailer selling it on to the consumer. It's a long value chain, and everybody needs to kind of take a little slice of that pie in order to keep things moving. And I guess ultimately what happens is, as input costs are constantly changing, it always seems to be the consumer who's the one who has to pay for this higher prices. But do you think there's a way that businesses need to strategically think about this end-to-end value chain and how they can better manage with more fluid methods and mechanisms in order to be able to keep that cost moving up and down so that the consumer isn't always paying, so they can maintain those volumes of sales that they need to hit?
Well, the nice thing about physical goods and distribution channels is as long as companies are using cost plus, and please, I hope none of my clients come back to me and say, Mark, you said use cost plus. But as long as they're using cost plus, then the manufacturer raises their price by 10%. And what typically happens is the distributor says, oh, we always take a 20-point margin, so therefore we're going to raise our prices 10% so that we maintain that 20 points of margin. Retailer says, oh, we always keep a 10% margin, so we have to raise our prices 10%. And so the price increase kind of flows up to the consumer in that respect. My favorite industry that's like this, though, is gasoline. Mm-hmm. So if you're going to buy gas, what happens to the price of gas to the consumer at the gas pump the day the price of oil is announced that it goes up? Right? The price of gas goes up instantly. And that's because the people at the gas station have said, oh, everybody's going to raise prices. Let me raise prices too. And they all know it, even though it takes 9 weeks in order to get a drop of oil out of the ground to the gas station near your house, right? But they'll move that price up instantly. And then what happens when the price of gas goes down? The price of gas at the pump comes down slowly.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
That's because competition from the gas stations, is slowly driving the price back down to some equilibrium point. But at no point does it really have to do with the cost. The cost is kind of a signal to everybody as to where we want to put our prices.
You know what I love about pricing is it's so complex, right? But pricing is complex because it's so important inside of a business. But complexity is what makes every business sort of move forward, right? And it's so hard to navigate and it's so difficult. And so really love having experts like you that we can talk to kind of try and demystify this wonderful world of pricing for us. So Mark, thank you so much for being here with us today. If there's people listening who want to speak to you more, how can they find you, and how can they understand more about your work with impact pricing?
Well, first, feel free to follow me on LinkedIn. I'm very active there. I publish a lot of content. I have a podcast called Impact Pricing, and you can email me, mark@impactpricing.com.
Thank you so much, Mark. For all the stories that we've heard today, the articles that follow up the sort of conversation that Mark and I had today, please follow our blog. Thank you so much again, Mark. And until next time, power to you, pricing people.